Boom, shakalaka. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Data Dispatch. We see Palantir Technologies closing above $60 for its first time in recorded history for the stock. What a time to be alive. We're seeing Palantir here. We've been covering this since the low 10s, and to see Palantir accumulate such a market capitalization above what everybody was calling me crazy, saying, hey, your thumbnails are obnoxious, 50 bucks, what are you talking about by the end of the year? It's at 60 right now. The bears are continuing to be proved wrong. We're going to be talking about where does Palantir go from here? What are we seeing in the market, especially with this rally that we've seen post the election results? We're continuing to see a lot of liquidity that is flooding into the stocks, and especially with the broader market that is continuing to ride higher. We're seeing some of the bigger stocks like Tesla, Nvidia continuing to soar. How does Palantir fit into that equation? We have a lot to break down. Let's make our road to 18,000 subscribers. Hit that like button, subscribe for daily videos, and of course, not a financial advisor. I'm collecting all the data and dispatching it to you. Now, pop it up on the screen. Like we said, Palantir closing at $60.24, doing very well in terms of trading volume at 108 million. Now, just quickly looking at the options here, what we see for Palantir, a ton of call volume, also a ton of put volume. We're going to be experiencing a lot of volatility, especially at these all-time highs. People are wondering, how far is this rally going to go for Palantir until we see a little bit of a cool off, and that could happen at any time. This stock will not just go straight up forever. We need to be ready for that time that there is a little bit of a cool off, consolidation, building support levels, considering this rocket is still ignited and going up higher. When will that stop? Of course, nobody knows. That's when risk assessment is going to be incredibly important. But nonetheless, talking about Palantir, what's been the main driver behind this growth? And especially as Palantir has really emerged as the all-time star for AI data analytics, especially in the SaaS industry right here. One of the main drivers of growth, talking about let the good times roll, and really why is Wall Street so bullish? First of all, is looking at Alex Karp and, of course, the launching of AIP. I think has been one of the biggest catapults that we've seen. We've talked about this in terms of predictions for expanding and really exponentiating the growth of Palantir. And that's happening right now, especially with the boot camps that have taken off. And we've really seen these big metrics right here. The customer count and the commercial customer count, commercial revenue continuing to grow 51% year over year, 39% year over year, respectively. The growth trends depicting showing how well AIP is really helping Palantir. And specifically, what we've seen are investors are really starting to heavily search Palantir. It is one of the most trendy stocks out there. And specifically, right now, according to the revisions to earnings estimates, that's how the Zacks analysts usually will rate their stocks. They've typically kept Palantir at a hold rating, but they actually just recently upgraded their rating here on a consensus estimate, along with all the other factors relating to the earnings estimates for Palantir to a buy. What? Rating them to a buy right now is a pretty bullish move and a really big, unpredictable move, I would say, considering the price action that we have right now. Now, one of the big key components that they're using as a factor are the earnings per share revisions, like we've said. And looking, I know we just saw an earnings quarter, so we're not going to be too focused on what's the next coming earnings, but looking more on where is this Zacks ranking coming from. We're expecting right here revenue estimates of about 776 million for the next quarter. That correlates right now. What we have are 11 earnings per share bullish revisions in the last 90 days. So guidance has been increased. We're seeing earning per share revisions in the general bullish direction, pushing the Zacks rating to over that buy sector. And Palantir right now is very highly valued. We cannot disregard that, especially specifically looking at the numbers, is trading right now at 56x price to sales and 330x price to earnings. It has overcame the market cap of Lockheed Martin, one of the biggest defense industry stocks that is out there. And the fact that Palantir is really, really driving across the board. What we've seen in terms of positions, we've only seen like 17 short positions across all the hedge funds compared to many more long positions. Right now, what this could mean, and what specifically is telling me, just looking at the data, is that Palantir still could have room to rally. Some people are still predicting what we've seen in price targets, even seeing from the street analysts in yesterday's video, price targets possibly going up to the 70s still. Imagine that. Palantir right now sits at a market cap at 134 billion. Ladies and gentlemen, this was just 50 billion a little bit ago. We see a lot of money pooling into Palantir, and right now it is being priced for perfection. That's where we talk about possible uncertainty, of course, going forward. But how does that correlate with the broader market? We see the broader market right here is also doing fairly well, basically kind of consolidating on the day. Some of the major pushers, Tesla up another 9% on the day, right now sitting at about 350. That Tesla and even some of the other big stocks are starting to perform extremely well. And how far does this rally have to go on top of crypto with Bitcoin that is sitting at all-time highs? Now, if we look at the market right here, the Dow Jones jumps 300 points to close above 44,000 for the first time. So it's not just Palantir that's sitting at record highs. We're also seeing the general market that is sitting at record highs. And specifically looking here, the NASDAQ and the S&P 500 has had one of the best weeks and over this last week that we've seen this whole year. Some of the big stocks, JP Morgan Chase, Goldman Sachs popping 1%. You see Bank of America, Citigroup jumping about 2%. The banks are doing very well. We're also seeing GameStop here, a meme stock back from 2020, surging about 10%. Will that take on another run? Only knows. But you see Tesla right here, and some of the big Magnificent 7 stocks, Apple, Microsoft, Amazon, actually came down about 2 to 1%. Not a bad thing, with small cap stocks climbing about 1.5%. The bullish sentiment behind the small cap stocks, that's specifically looking at the Russell 2000 index here, is if borrowing costs become cheaper via the reduction of the federal funds rate, what we saw another 25 basis point cut from the last FOMC meeting, then you do have some of these smaller companies having cheaper access to more money, bringing them more of a beneficial opportunity to help grow their companies. So what we're seeing right now is this kind of euphoria that's pouring into the market, especially with the recent change in the anticipation of administrative changes coming next year. You're seeing a lot of money pulling into the markets with the anticipation of deregulation, with the anticipation of cheaper prices, better economy, la-da-da-da-da. What you do have here, Tesla stock, I wanted to talk about that a little more because this is a very interesting story for Tesla. Up another 9% in the day. Tesla was at 247 here just a few days ago, up another $100 at 350. So what's the story for Tesla, especially as it crosses a $1 trillion market cap, especially at 1.12 trillion right now? One thing is that the hedge funds actually that are shorting Tesla are taking a big loss, losing over $5 billion right now. But particularly why Tesla is very interesting is because we've seen Elon Musk in his recent relations with Donald Trump working to help gain their results for the election. What you're seeing here is Tesla, the EV giant, up nearly 39% since we've seen the election results. And typically what we've seen for EV stocks with the Republican administration is typically harsher in not getting all the tax credits for EV vehicles, not worried about you actually kind of the regulation of EV vehicles. And typically what we've seen there are sometimes they typically suffer. It's seen more as a greener type of left type of stock that people will usually invest in. But Tesla is different here. It's an EV stock that's doing incredibly well. One of the big bullish things here is, with the Republican administration, a lot of talk is around the tariffs. The tariffs would price a lot of those cheaper Chinese EV vehicles trying to infiltrate the US market with really high tariffs that would make it not opportunistic for those Chinese companies to come in, making it way too expensive, giving more of a competitive advantage to Tesla. And while Tesla is going to be closely tied now with possibly even Elon working possibly for the U.S. government in terms of his government efficiency. But we've seen all about that in the headlines. This shows you the connection that Tesla could have to the government, and talking about that with deregulation, Of course, with companies not as high in terms of strict regulations, this gives Tesla more room to run. And especially with SpaceX and with the things that they're doing, this is incredibly bullish for Tesla compared to some of the other EV stocks that are not going to, I think, get the same piece of the pie. That's where I sit with that. I think Tesla has room to run. We've seen Dan Ives even coming out here with price targets of $400, saying there is still room to run for Tesla, especially as we've seen an immense amount of growth in just the past few months. What do you think about all that? Palantir at 60. What are your predictions? Peace out. Take care. I'll catch you guys later. See you tomorrow.